What's going on YouTube? It's Tej back again with another video, and today we're continuing our 2023 updated NFL mock draft. Yesterday was round one. If you missed it, be sure to go back and check it out. Let me know what you think about the draft for your favorite squad, and I want to bring back the same question for today's video. How many trades do you think we get in the first round of the NFL mock draft? Today we're talking about round two, but let me know your early prediction for how many trades we end up getting on round one. But let's waste no time. Let's start talking about round two of this updated mock. We start with the Pittsburgh Steelers. This pick comes by the virtue of the trade with the Chicago Bears for Chase Claypool. I'm going to have this be Anton Harrison. Talked about him a little bit in yesterday's video. Ultimately, I think I'm going to have him get the bump up and over Broderick Jones, just because I think right away Anton Harrison is a better pass protector. Jones a little raw there for Georgia one-year starter, and I think I see that rawness and pass protection a little bit more. Anton Harrison, three-year starter, going back to Lincoln Riley, even played as a true freshman, more than 1,000 pass sets in his career. Needs to gain some play strength, kind of like what we talked about with Brian Brzee early on in yesterday's video. But, I mean, once you get to the NFL, it's a different beast. I mean, that strength and conditioning program, that workout regimen, it's different. So I have no concerns that Anton Harrison will be able to gain some strength. And I think, and Pittsburgh got him here at 32. I think that is a almost immediate upgrade, if not an immediate upgrade over Dan Moore. And then who knows, maybe Dan Moore can work himself into a camp battle with Chukwuma Okorafor over at right tackle. Next up, the Houston Texans. I've had this pick a handful of times, so I do apologize, my Texans fans. B.J. Ojulari. You can go in a handful of different directions. Maybe you want somebody who's a little bit bigger, and Isaiah Foskey or Zach Harrison even could be in play here. But I'll go B.J. Ojulari. To me, he was the edge that most stood out as like a holdover from the first round. A little bit lighter, but this year at TCU, I think at LSU, he's done a great job being able to add that inside counter. He's already a guy that plays with a good first step, has that explosiveness off the line, can win with speed and attack that tackles outside shoulder. But I think now he's been able to gain that inside counter off of it. So to me, this feels like a guy who, maybe doesn't do a whole lot against the run just because he's a little slight, but as a pass rusher, this guy, he can make an immediate impact. And, the Texans long-term need that, edge rusher of the future who could become a double-digit sack type of guy. And I think B.J. Ojulari has that in his potential. Then we get to the Arizona Cardinals here at 34. Let's go Garrett Williams. Got hurt against Notre Dame. That kind of it did bring his season to an early close, and I felt like that kind of stymied his potential draft rise. But 6 foot, 190 pounds, and at Syracuse had gotten better and better and better. Good ball production as well, and I think there is some scheme versatility, man and zone here. So depending on what happens as the head coaching hire comes out for Arizona, whoever the DC is, I think we'll have more clarity about what type of corner maybe they're coveting. But corner is a position of need. I think Byron Murphy can kick outside. And I know Marco Wilson's there. I've had some Cardinals fans mention him before. I wasn't crazy about him coming out of Florida. Feels kind of up and down. But, hey, if you believe in him, I totally respect that. But nonetheless, hey, you can never have too many corners, right? So let's go ahead and add Garrett Williams into the mix. Then we get the Chicago Bears at pick 35. And I feel like I always find a way to neglect offense and trying to help Justin Fields in these mock drafts for the Bears. But part of it's just where they're positioned, right? Like, yesterday we had the trade down to 4. And it's like, well, the quarterbacks are gone. You're not thinking that. And really, the only other position I'm thinking about at 4 is Will Carter and Jalen Anderson. I don't want tackle. I don't want wide receiver, whatever. But here at 35, I'm going to go Darnell Wright. Could be an upgrade there at right tackle over Larry Borom or whoever ends up having that job. I know they signed Riley Reiff last offseason. But making the switch from left tackle to right tackle, Darnell Wright has been fantastic at Tennessee. Feels like a plug-and-play starter there for Chicago. They need to get better on the offensive line, specifically in pass protection. Let's give our guy Justin Fields a shot, and we'll continue that point with the very last pick. It'll be technically the first pick of the third round, but we'll go ahead and show pick 64 in today's mock. Next up, the LA Rams at 36. If you're a Rams fan, let me know what you think about this, because I feel like you're going to hate it, but let me just hear why. I'm going to go with Antonio Johnson because, kind of like B.J. Ojulari, I was like, man, how did I not have him go in the first round? Because I'm still a big Antonio Johnson guy, 6'3", 200, the ability to play that kind of nickel corner, strong safety role. Maybe he's best suited as a box safety, but I do think he can play that slot. And I think if the Rams minimum added him into the mix, he could be that nickel corner, and then Troy Hill maybe can play outside. That number 2 corner, specifically that number 2 perimeter corner for the Rams last year, a lot of the time it was Darion Kendrick, and a lot of times he was getting picked on. So I feel like there's an upgrade to be had there in the secondary. Also, what do they want to do with Jordan Fuller? Is Taylor Rapp coming back? He's a free agent. So no matter how you spin it, Johnson could be an upgrade or a potential starter at either safety or nickel corner, which I think could benefit that defense. Could also go edge, and of course, offensive line in the mix as well. Then we get to the Seattle Seahawks. This is actually the pick that we got from the Carolina Panthers yesterday. Actually, excuse me, pick 39 is that, so we'll come back to that. But nonetheless, pick 37. I'm going to go with a different name and someone who's catching a lot of steam in the draft community of late. But I do want to just say, I'll take a little bit of a victory lap here. Before anybody else really had even mentioned Kalijah Kancey, if you go back and you don't believe me, go check out my very early interior defensive line rankings. Him and Kobe Turner were honorable mentions in that video. Kobe Turner's this guy who was a walk-on at Richmond and then transferred over to Wake Forest at 10 pressures against Clemson. I just think he's an awesome pass rusher. Now, the Clemson offensive line didn't turn out to be very good, so maybe that stat's not as impressive as it was at the time. But, Kalijah Kancey was this guy who, 6 foot, 280, 290 pounds, kind of an undersized DT, but I remember the last undersized DT that people doubted out of Pittsburgh, and he became the best defensive player that I've seen in my lifetime. So, him and Darrelle Revis, in my opinion, but yeah, pretty scary. I'm not saying Kalijah Kancey is going to be that, not by any stretch, but this dude is a pass rusher, and I think ideally best suited in a 4-3. I know Seattle made the switch to a 3-4 last year under Ken Norton, so maybe not the perfect fit, but he could also play that 3-4 DN spot, and I love the fact that he's gaining all this steam because you look at his tape, specifically as a pass rusher, great get off on the line, good handwork as well, and yeah, just a great pass rusher. I don't know what he'll be or what he'll provide as a run stopper, which for Seattle, it's like, already kind of struggle against the run, but yesterday we added Trenton Simpson. Maybe that linebacker boost will give enough of a boost, for lack of a better term, for the defense. And Kalijah Kancey gives you some extra pass rush potential. So a name that's hot right now, and it felt like it could be a nice fit there for Seattle. But we'll see where his stock is. I'm proud that I mentioned him a handful of months ago now. Then we get to the Vegas Raiders here at 38. I'm going to go corner Deonte Banks. I had somebody comment last week, and they were like, why would corner, 172 or whatever be the pick here? Man, where is Deonte Banks? Hold on, I got to find him real quick. But nonetheless, somebody was like, why would, or 119 or whatever he ended up being. This is just the mock draft database and how their rankings play out. Mine are different. PFF's mock draft simulator's different. PFN's mock draft simulator's different. So take the numbers next to their name with a grain of salt. I think Deonte Banks is going to be a second-round corner to me. 6'2", right around 200 pounds, and a guy at Maryland. Said this with Joey Porter Jr. I'm going to say this about Tyreek Stevenson later on. This guy who got better and better and better. That said, Banks is his first year at Maryland. I think a lower baseline than those other two guys, so a little misleading there, but also good ball production at Maryland, and always felt like a guy who was at the catch point too. So you look at his ball production, and it could have been even better. So I think there's still some potential to be tapped into, and of course with that size, that's naturally something that's going to allure NFL teams. I think he'll run well at the combine. I think he'll just do all in general pretty well at Indianapolis. And you look at the Raiders secondary, and yeah, they need some help. So let's go take a flyer here on Deonte Banks. Yeah, I don't think flyer is the right term, but let's take Deonte Banks here. Now we get the Seattle Seahawks pick. This came from the Carolina Panthers in yesterday's trade back. If you missed it, I think it's a really fun story. Let me know what you think about that. And if the Seahawks would make that move, do you think Carolina would make that move? Love to hear why you think one way or another. But nonetheless, here at 39, let's go with Isaiah Foskey. So we went with Kalijah Kancey as interior defensive lineman. Now let's go add Isaiah Foskey here to play the true edge. So Uchenna Nwosu, last year of his deal, so we'll have to wait and see if he's even coming back beyond that. But also Boye Mafe, a little light. I think Foskey's best suited is like a 4-3 DN, and again, I know Seattle's running a 3-4 now, but I do think Foskey can be a stand-up rusher. So couple picks, two away from each other. We're really putting emphasis on the pass rush. That said, I think Foskey does bring some decent run defense potential there, more certainly than Kalijah Kancey. Then we get to pick 40. New Orleans Saints. Sorry, Saints fans. I have a bad habit of doing this, but it's just the easiest thing I can give y'all because otherwise I start thinking about how many holes I think there are on that roster. Long term, you could go offensive line. I think you could go potentially number 2 corner. You could go linebacker of the future, even though Pete Warner was pretty good this year. Edge rusher, IDL. But let's just go Tanner McKee here because we don't know what that quarterback position is going to play out. So, again, after free agency, we'll have a better idea. But with a team that's like more than $50 million over the cap, saving money at quarterback is the best way to kind of clear up that, right? So, and I think Tanner McKee is an intriguing prospect. If he went in the first round, I wouldn't hate it. I'm a big Tanner McKee believer. I think the situation at Stanford was brutal. And I think once he gets to the NFL, he's going to be in a better spot. He's going to be in a better ecosystem. A guy with a lot of accuracy, just enough mobility to tuck and run, solid arm strength. I think he's an intriguing NFL prospect. Really, his stock's going to come down to how he interviews, I think, a lot of ways. Because I think NFL teams will be able to see, Stanford's offensive line wasn't very good. Wide receivers don't get open at a high clip. But is this guy like somebody you would want to be the leader of a team? That's going to dictate where this guy goes, kind of late 1, maybe early 2, or if he kind of falls down to, late day 2, early day 3 type of territory. Let me get to the Tennessee Titans here at 41. As promised in yesterday's video, we are going to go wide receiver, and we're going to go with guy in the thumbnail today, Jalen Hyatt. Man, last week I did Kayshon Boutte, Jalen Hyatt, same but different, right? I just love to see that over-the-top burner added in this offense. Treylon Burks, for 6'3", I know he didn't run that, 4.3 or 4.40 we were wanting him to run last year, but that dude can work down the field, and given his size, he's pretty swift. He's a pretty fast-moving guy for how big he is, but also a great satellite player. Jalen Hyatt, I think you could do some of those similar things. This guy in the Josh Heupel offense, that dude could run a hitch, and at 5 yards, it's like if that DB's not on him, once he's got the ball in his hands, like, good luck. That dude is a true, I don't want to say jitterbug, but for lack of a better term, we'll call him a jitterbug. But that dude is, just because of how quick his feet move, and he's so elusive and so shaky, but also just obviously the burner ability. The 5 touchdowns against Alabama, doing a lot of that deep down the field, and I'd love to see in a play action, type of offense where you're going to run the ball a lot with Derrick Henry, set up the play action, Jalen Hyatt trying to get behind the DBs. I think Tennessee could have a lot of success with that. Just need the quarterback, whoever it ends up being, to make that throw. Pick 42, I'm going to go Siaki Ika here for the Cleveland Browns. They just got to get better there on the interior. Need a run stopper like no other. And Siaki Ika's that. Sure, maybe at college at Baylor, he wasn't necessarily the most, he wasn't the highest grader in PFF data when it comes to being a run defender, or even if you're just a Baylor fan, maybe he didn't stand out as much as a run defender. And actually, you pick out the best 5 to 10 plays of Siaki Ika's season. Pretty much all of them are in pass rush situations, and they're all kind of in finesse wins, the spin move and the swim off of it too. It's wow, for someone who's 358 pounds, it's kind of weird that these finesse pass rush wins are the things that stand out. But I think part of that's Baylor, the coaching staff, and just the way they play defense. I think at the NFL with a change in philosophy in NFL coaching, he'll be able to hold the line of scrimmage a lot better, and that's Cleveland needs that like nothing else. Like I said earlier. So plus you throw in the pass rush potential. Who knows who that other edge rusher opposite of Myles Garrett's going to be, but get another pass rusher or a potential plus-level pass rusher in the mix when you already have Myles Garrett. That is a win in and of itself. Next, New York Jets at pick 43. Man, this would just be an awesome fit. I think Drew Sanders ends up going late 1, very early 2, but let's have some fun here. This could be another pick here for the Texans now that I'm thinking about it, but let's say he slips and falls to the Jets. There's not many pieces in that defense that I think the Jets are missing. Off-ball linebacker for the future is one of them, and Sanders is an insane athlete. Already put his coverage skills on display this past year at Arkansas. Former 5-star recruit, originally committed to Bama, transferred over to Arkansas, and this past year I think was great, making a lot of headway. I've even seen some people put him as off-ball linebacker 1 over Trenton Simpson, which I still got Simpson as 1, but I could respect it because, dude, Sanders is a baller. And for the Jets, it's hey, what are those last few things you're missing on the defense? You add Sanders in the mix, man, that defense gets that much scarier to face week in and week out. Next up, the Atlanta Falcons at pick 44. Let's go DJ Turner here. A corner I haven't really gotten to talk about, but he was on my very early cornerback rankings honorable mentions. A guy who was grading out really well at Michigan, I think playing really well. Another 6'1", right around that 190-pound mark. You're going to hear me say that a ton. This cornerback class just feels like it's loaded with 6'1" and 6'2" corners between 190 and 200 pounds. And again, I was just really impressed with his play this year at Michigan. Combine, we'll see what his 40 time checks in at, because if he exceeds expectations, he could shoot up the board, but if he disappoints there, he could fall down the board. So a little bit of a wait and see type of prospect, but a guy who I haven't put in these videos yet. Want to talk about him. He's played really well this past year at Michigan. Next is the Green Bay Packers, and we're going to go Dalton Kincaid. I've gone Michael Mayer in the first round. I had some Packers fans saying no way, they don't draft pass catchers in the first round, which LOL, you got me there. Can't really argue with that. But what about the second round? They do draft a lot of wide receivers in the second round, and here let's just say maybe they go the tight end route. Dalton Kincaid was one of the best things that Utah's offense had working for him. And they really kind of ran that offense through him and Caleb Rising. So love to see this fit here for Green Bay. You pair up a young tight end of the future with Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, ideally taking steps forward in year 2. And that way, whether it's Aaron Rodgers or Jordan Love, there's a solid supporting cast and an emerging supporting cast around that said quarterback. Then we get to the New England Patriots, pick 46. I'm going to go Blake Freeland here. A couple different tackles you could go with here. Dwan Jones, I think, is a right tackle of the future. We're going to come back to Cody Mock later. I know Jalen Duncan has his supporters, but let's just go with Freeland here. Been really solid at BYU since taking over for Braden Christensen. 6'8". To me, he kind of, he plays left tackle. Mike McGlinchey plays right tackle for San Francisco, but kind of has those McGlinchey-esque vibes in him because he's 6'8", 300+ pounds. Just these big, tall tackles that kind of struggle with speed rushers getting underneath them. But that said, I also think there's a solid power component to Freeland's game. So I like this fit, and also like offensive tackle is just going to be a need depending on what they do with Isaiah Wynn. So attacking a need here, but also I think there's solid value. This tackle class is going to be kind of fluid because it may not have an insane depth, but once you get to day 2, it feels like you could pick a name out of a hat. And it's like, yeah, that guy could go day 2. Yeah, that one makes sense. So today I'm just going with Blake Freeland. Let me get to the Washington Commanders next up. I'm going to go Andrew Voorhees. We're sticking on the offensive line here, if I could speak. Voorhees going out of USC, a ton of playing time under his belt, and this is your Andrew Norwell replacement. I've said this a billion times. You can get better there, you get younger there, you get cheaper there. So why wouldn't you? So and also like, hey, if it truly is Sam Howell moving forward, let's try to solidify and improve that offensive line, give them a fair shake. I think the wide receivers are. There's an abundance of weapons to be worked with there. Now we just got to patch up that offensive line. I think, again, Voorhees is a solid upgrade over Andrew Norwell. Next is the Detroit Lions. As promised yesterday's video, after we went running back at 18, I was like, hey, just stick with me. Don't hate me. But we're going to go defensive heavy today. Let's go Eli Ricks. If it is Aaron Glenn and they do run a lot of that press man, Eli Ricks, he's well suited for a fit in that defense. May not be a guy who runs the most insane 40, but also a guy who didn't see the field a whole lot this year at Alabama. But man, when he did, he was good. He was good. Same thing at LSU. This guy who was awesome as a true freshman, then had some injuries his sophomore year. But man, every time he's been on the field, he's been great. And part of my concerns, and we'll see how this affects things and interview process things that I'm not obviously a part of, will play a factor here, but I heard once he got to Alabama, he was a little slow learning the playbook, which maybe that turns teams off. Again, that's just me speculating, so who knows? But nonetheless, and that's just based off reports we heard at the beginning of the college football season, so who knows the validity of those too? But nonetheless, man. Again, not the most explosive, straight line speed guy, but his back pedal, that explosiveness, working backwards, is kind of it's all honestly baffling. Considering, again, I don't think he's going to run like a 4.3 40. But every time he's played, he's been really impressive, and I think him paired up with Jeff Okudah could give you a really scary, potential man press corner duo of the future, which I do think that's what Aaron Glenn wants to do if he does stick around as the DC. Pittsburgh Steelers at pick 49. I'm going to give you a Mason Cole upgrade here, and we're going to go with John Michael Schmitz, 5-year player at played 5 years at Minnesota, started for 4 of those. I think he has guard flexibility, but to me, this allows you to keep James Daniels at one guard spot, Kevin Dotson at the other, and you still have Kendrick Green just kind of lingering around, 3rd-round pick from a couple years ago. This is just your upgrade over Mason Cole. Maybe you can even part ways and save some money against the cap there. Makes a lot of sense. The Steelers can get better. I've been going safety here, but let's change it up. Let's go into your offensive line. Next is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm going to go Jalen Jones. A corner that I like a decent bit. Solid ball production this past year. Also played 10 games and only gave up 10 receptions. That's pretty good. 6'2", right around that 200-pound mark. Again, another one of those guys where, depending on his 40 time, this dude can shoot up boards or he can shoot down. So a little bit of a wait and see, just like DJ Turner. And again, we'll talk about Tyreek Stevenson. He's kind of in that same boat later on once we get to the Giants pick. Spoiler alert. Then we get to the Miami Dolphins. And this is, as promised, where we're going to have Cody Mott come off the board. Definitely needs some work to be done as a pass protector and specifically his play strength. He's just converted off the tackle, so he's still new to the position and still transforming his body to where it needs to get to. But this dude flies around the field, and specifically as a run blocker, the dude is a machine. And it was just that component paired up with the idea of a Mike McDaniel, the Shanahan disciple offense. I want to see Cody Mott in that run game. I just want to see him in that wide zone scheme, and let's just have some fun. So I've been going running back heavy here. I'd love to see Darnell Washington somehow fall here, but I don't see that being in the cards. But yeah, Cody Mott could be a really fun offensive line addition here, and that right tackle spot is really the last piece on that offensive line that I think they get better at. Brandon Shell wasn't it. Walker Little wasn't very good. So let's Austin Jackson's still not great. So let's go ahead and try to get an upgrade there. Mott's going to be a little bit of a project, but at least in the run game, I think it's a really fun landing spot for him. The final pick for the Seattle Seahawks, man. So we traded back, got Anthony Richardson. We got a QB of the future. We got linebacker. We got interior pass rush. We got edge rush. And now let's have some fun. Let's go Kayshon Boutte. Could be a Tyler Lockett replacement because I know that cap numbers are going to continue to rise this year and next. But also D. Eskridge really hasn't worked out. So I think you could work Boutte into the mix right away as that third wide receiver, and then long-term becomes a Tyler Lockett replacement. I think this works for, multiple reasons, and those reasons being it. And also, hey, Geno Smith led the NFL last year in games with 2+ passing touchdowns, and he had more than enough willingness to push the ball down the field add Kayshon Boutte speed in the mix, and yeah, that's going to be really fun. And then, keep in mind, Tyler Lockett speed, DK Metcalf speed. Yeah, let's just throw those go balls. Let's have some fun in Seattle. Then we get to pick 53. Chicago Bears, not going to go wide receiver here. Again, we're going to do that at 64. But at pick 53, let's get some edge rush. I know we have Jalen Carter here, but that's that 3 tech that Eberflus needs. They also need edge like no other. So let's go ahead and add, where's my guy? Will McDonald. Here we go. So ton of credit here. Mock Draft Database have moved a lot of the guys they previously had at the D-line, interior guys, into edge. So I appreciate that. Will McDonald, 6'3", 236. This is your prototypical speed rusher. Unfortunately, at Iowa State, they were kind of playing him inside of that 3-4 DN spot, playing a lot of 4 and 5 tech, which just not going to be where he plays to the NFL. This dude needs to be, 7 tech, lined up outside a tackle and trying to beat that outside shoulder. And like I said, Chicago needs edge rush bad, and I think adding a speed rusher in the mix when you already have Jalen Carter, all of a sudden that pass rush looks pretty good. And plus, we'll see what they do in free agency. Then we get to the LA Chargers at pick 54. I've seen some people give them Michael Mayer in the first round. I'm not crazy about that. I'm still just hoping they draft that speed wide receiver, complete my offseason checklist for the move on from Joe Lombardi, which again, I'm never happy to see a guy lose his job, but I think that he just wasn't the guy for the job, and getting the most out of that offense. They added the speed wide receiver in my first round mock. Now let's go crazy with this offense. Let's give Justin Herbert no excuse. Year 4, new OC, speed wide receiver, and upgrade there at tight end. Gerald Everett actually had some pretty good games this year, but Donald Parham's going to be a free agent, and Luke Musgrave, injured after week 2, but put his athleticism on display, soft hands, good enough route runner. I think Kincaid's probably a little bit better of a blocker, but here in the middle of the second round, if you're getting a really solid athletic pass catching tight end, I think you jump on it. And we saw the Chargers load up on defensive talent. Now with this mock draft, we're loading up on offensive talent. And we're just trying to go all in around Herbert and trying to make a Super Bowl push, which I think the Chargers, if all works out, if everyone stays healthy, and I don't know, the Brandon Staley, the 4th down decision, all of it, if they do the right things, this team can certainly be dangerous and serious Super Bowl contenders. Then we get the Detroit Lions. I'm going to go with DeMarvin Overshown. I am very bullish on Overshown. So if you're thinking, hey, the Lions need a player who can play right now, Henry To'o, Jack Campbell, even Noah Sewell could be interesting, or Dwayne Hensley here. But I like Overshown a ton. 6'5", 245, and he's just this awesome, moldable clay of a linebacker. And really this year at Texas, outside of one game, did a really good job about cleaning up his missed tackles. You look at his first couple years as a starter at Texas, that missed tackle percentage was way too high. Then he had one game this year where he had 4 missed tackles or something like that. That was a rough one. I can't even remember who they were playing, but all in all, this year, that missed tackle percentage comes down. The overall missed tackles comes down. And again, with that size, a really good athlete, I think he's going to put up some awesome numbers. This could be a guy that after Indy, we see this dude start shooting up boards, and you start hearing people talk about him a whole lot more, especially considering the progress he's made as a tackler. So may not be the most insane immediate upgrade for the Lions, which, maybe that frustrates Detroit fans. Let me know what you would do here at linebacker if you are a Detroit fan. But I think, man, there's a lot of upside to tap into with Overshown. You already have Malcolm Rodriguez. That could be a really awesome linebacker pairing for the future, and 2 guys who can just fly around the field. Jags up at pick 56. I was thinking maybe I'll go corner here, but I'm actually going to go interior offensive line. Could go Luke Weipler. I don't hate that, but I'm going to go Steve Avila. Get you a upgrade there at left guard and a really nice pass protector in specific. Did a ton of good work this year at TCU. I know the last thing we saw from TCU was them getting wiped off the floor by Georgia, but that was Georgia, and they played maybe their best game of the season. So, I think we don't hold that against Avila. And look at the entire season, his entire career at TCU. He's been a really solid pass protector on the inside. And I think, with Trevor Lawrence under center, that should be a big-time focus for the Jags. Plus, you get Calvin Ridley coming back next year. So we kind of we didn't go wide receiver is all I'm trying to say. We went Michael Mayer in the first round. Now we're getting a pass-protecting guard. We're still keeping Trevor Lawrence in the focus of this mock draft. Giants here at pick 57. This is, as noted, where we're going to go Tyreek Stevenson. Trevius Hodges Tomlinson, do want to give him honorable mention. Haven't talked about him yet, but he's only 5'9", and the Giants, I feel like, have drafted enough nickel corners over the last couple of years. Aaron Robinson, Darnay Holmes immediately come to mind. Let's go with Tyreek Stevenson. I think a guy who legitimately could give Wink Martindale, a guy who can play on the outside and be potential man press corner, which Wink needs for his defense. And once I do a third-round mock draft, I think off of this, trying to find a blitzing linebacker, someone like an Ivan Pace from Cincinnati, who's going to be at the Senior Bowl too. So I'm really excited to see where his stock moves after that. But an awesome blitzer out of Cincy. So just want to throw that out there. I am thinking about blitzing linebacker, just maybe not here at this spot, unless it's Noah Sewell. Maybe I could be talked into that. But Tyreek Stevenson, year over year, got better and better at Miami. 6 foot, 190 pounds. I mean, how many times have you heard me say that about this draft class, right? But again, we'll see what the 40 comes in. I mean, the speed is going to be a big component of this game. I've really liked what I've seen so far out of Stevenson coming out of Miami. He was actually a player I believe was on my quarterback honorable mentions at the beginning of the year. If not, he was just outside that list. He's a player I'm really eager to get back into the tape on. But yeah, really what I got to see watching games and what I have seen of other people posting it and talking about him, he's a really interesting prospect. And we've b'en talking about these corners, 6'1", 190, 6'2", 200 pounds. I think you're going to hear a ton of corners names coming off the board round 1. Round 2, round 3, basically this entire draft, because it's a loaded corner class, in my opinion. Then we get to the Dallas Cowboys, who hold the pick 58. I'm going to go Jahmyr Gibbs. If you're a Dallas fan, let me know if you're into this, because I'm just fascinated. But I just got to say it. Zeke's not good. I mean, Zeke and Leonard Fournette, 2 running backs both drafted 4, right? Yeah, I think both drafted 4, if not both drafted in the top 5, and both are not good. So it's amazing how that's kind of worked out. But yeah, once Tony Pollard gets hurt in that divisional game, the Cowboys offense lost its second most explosive weapon. CeeDee Lamb being 1 and then Tony Pollard being number 2. I think that's fair to say. And that offense immediately had the air come out of the sails. I mean, just immediately lost all its momentum and just felt like the offense didn't look the same thereafter. So potential replacement here. They could also franchise tag Tony Pollard, so then maybe this pick becomes interior defensive line, maybe edge depth, or something like that. Maybe another wide receiver. That could totally be in the cards here. Maybe a Josh Downs or something like that. But let's just say, hey, Pollard gets the bag in the offseason. They don't want to give him the franchise tag. And they can also cut Zeke and actually save a little bit of money. It's not a whole lot, but they'll save money this year and then obviously a ton of money off the books for years to come. So I'd like to see them make that move. Zeke's just not good. And I think it's time for Dallas to just recognize that and part ways. We'll see what they do with Pollard, but if both of those guys are gone, they're going to need a running back. And I think, man, Jahmyr Gibbs could be really fun in that really fun fit. Running behind that offensive line, has good speed. He feels a lot like James Cook in a lot of ways. Really good pass catcher too, which, if you do lose Pollard, Gibbs is a really nice fit there. But also, I could see a world where Pollard's gone and they keep Zeke, and then, kind of Gibbs kind of lets you keep that status quo with Gibbs kind of being that Pollard replacement. All right, next up, let's talk about the Buffalo Bills. Speaking of Josh Downs, I'm going to go with Downs here at 34. I've been hearing a lot of positive buzz about Khalil Shakir. And maybe it's just a role change. So I'm going to go down a little bit of a diatribe here for the Bills. So skip ahead if you don't really care. You even saw it in the divisional round. When Stephon Diggs is taken away, and I've said this end of the regular season going to the playoffs, when Diggs isn't it, like when they take him away or they're not giving him targets, that offense is mid. I mean, Gabe Davis, everything he does is vertical. And then Khalil Shakir, and again, maybe it's just the role they're asking him to play. I hear a lot of positive buzz from within that they like Khalil Shakir, but everything he does seems to be deep down the field. And I get this team wants to be vertical, and trust me, I want people to push the ball down the field, but Stephon Diggs is like the only guy that they let work those hitch routes, work underneath, and then run the digs in the intermediate parts of the field. I'd love to see them add a Josh Downs where it's like, this is a satellite player. We're going to throw a bubble screen to you. We're going to line you up out wide. You're going to take a step back, catch the screen, and let's go. Whatever the case may be. But he also has speed to potentially become a guy who works down the field. But this guy's a yards after the catch, another component of that offense. And then Gabe Davis works deep down the field. Diggs does a little bit of everything. And then Downs kind of the underneath, spark plug, if you will. And he's hard to bring down. Really elusive guy with the ball in his hands. Feels like a missing component of that offense. Now, that said, maybe next year Ken Dorsey's just saying, hey, you know what? I didn't do a good enough job having Dawson Knox be a factor in the intermediate part of the game, and I didn't have Khalil Shakir doing enough stuff underneath, getting the balls in his hand, and just letting him do easy stuff and run after the catch. If that is something that, obviously I'm not a part of that conversation, not in the Bills building, but if that conversation is being had and those tweaks are being made where Dawson Knox becomes more of an impact player from 10 yards and shallower, and Khalil Shakir can work the underneath and intermediate stuff as well, and it's not just Stephon Diggs, okay, then maybe you don't need wide receiver here. We went IOL last video. Maybe go corner, maybe go safety depth for the future, depending on what happens at linebacker. Maybe you go there as well. So maybe edge depth too. Once they lost Von Miller, that edge, the pass rush was non-existent. So anyways, just to clarify why I'm going Downs, but maybe that's why they don't go in that direction depending on what that Khalil Shakir role ends up becoming. Cincinnati Bengals at long last get to make the pick at 60. We're going to go Derek Hall here. Dude, I got to say, the pass rush for the Bengals has been so impressive this year. They have really, like Trey Hendrickson was a guy that when he got that contract in Cincy, I was like, that's an overpay. They're going to regret that in a year's time. but they haven't. And even the extension of Sam Hubbard, like, I know he's kind of like a locker room team leader guy, but man, he's making some plays. And obviously you get the touchdown against the Ravens, the wild card. But like that aside, he's just legitimately gotten better as a pass rusher. DJ Reader has been awesome on the inside, both as a run defender, but as a pass rusher. But here I'm just going to give them some depth, because you look at that roster and it's like, corner, but we've already had a long, run on corners here in the second round. Maybe safety, but they drafted 2 last year. I do think Dax Hill and Von Bell become safeties of the future for Jesse Bates and, Cam Taylor-Britt and Dax Hill are going to be the safety replacements for Jesse Bates and Von Bell. So let's just go edge depth here. A nice speed rusher for Derek Hall. I think he was really good this year at Auburn. Kind of like Will McDonald in that same, height weight range, 6'3", 230. So he's your prototypical speed rusher. And I think that maybe limits him to late first round at best, just because I don't know how much he'll give you in the run game. But man, this guy, first step off the line, he can be scary. He's explosive. So we're committed with a rotation of, Cam Sample and Joseph Osai, who's still there, plus Hendrickson and Hubbard. Man, that pass rush just gets that much scarier. Also, if Kalijah Cansey, I kind of thought about maybe this is where I'll put him, but he's been a hot name of late, so I pushed him up this mock draft a little bit. But if he was available here and you get in a passing situation, it's him and DJ Reader on the inside, God, that's scary. Plus the edge rotation, yeah, the Bengals would be, man, I don't even know how you'd face that pass rush in a 3rd and 15 type of situation. All right, let's talk about the Carolina Panthers now here at pick 61. Felix Ndike-Uzomah feels like a player who should go in the second round. Zach Harrison feels like a better fit here, because I'm just thinking, you got Brian Burns on the other side of the ball, who lighter, not much of a run defender, right? Wins with that speed. So I don't want to double down with Felix Ndike-Uzomah, but I also have a hard time thinking that he gets past the first 64 picks. So I'm going to go Zach Harrison here, because it feels like a second swing of the bat against or at Yetur Gross-Matos, this big, tall, power edge on the other side of Brian Burns. But if you were to ask me which edge is ranked higher, it'd be Felix Ndike-Uzomah. I just think the role and the situation, what they already have, dictates the decision to be Zach Harrison. So just a little bit of a clarifier there. But that being said, a guy who has NFL size, has NFL power for a while now. We've been kind of waiting for him to take that next step, and he just never did. He had weeks where it's like, dude, Zach Harrison, man, this guy could work himself in the first round. And the next week, it's like, wait a minute, Zach Harrison playing this week? So a little frustrating there. Also not the most bendy edge rusher. So again, this is playing off the complement of Brian Burns on one side versus the power on top of the speed. Harrison, I think, will run in the 4.4, so he does have that speed to power ability. And so maybe you can play mix match against opposing tackles and say, hey, this guy struggles with power, we're going to put Harrison over top of him. Or this dude has no chance against a speedy, bendy rusher like Brian Burns, so that's going to be our matchup we exploit here. So that's my thinking there for the Panthers. Kansas City Chiefs then at pick 62. We went corner yesterday, so now we're going to go edge. And I was going to go Keon White, a guy who I've had some people say Keon White's not going to go before the second round. I don't know. He feels like a guy who's going to go top 64 to me. So I'll go Felix Ndike-Uzomah just because I do think I'll have Ndike-Uzomah ranked higher than Keon White. But keep an eye on Keon White, because that's a name to know if you haven't heard about him yet. A little bit of an older player and a transfer to Georgia Tech, but played really well this year. But we'll just go Felix Ndike-Uzomah. Feels like a really nice compliment. Kind of the same thing we were just talking about with the Panthers. But George Karlaftis, this violent guy with his hands, and he can win with power. And then Ndike-Uzomah on the other side, that great first step off the line, good speed rusher. May not give you a whole lot in the run game, but with the Chiefs playing ahead in a lot of games, we've added a corner, we've added an edge rusher. I think that's a worthy draft route there for Kansas City. Then we get to the Philadelphia Eagles at 63. I'm going to go with my boy Jamie Robinson. I feel like I might be a little bit higher on him than most, but guy who played free, strong, and nickel for Florida State at a pretty even balance. Most of that was at free safety. And depending on what happens, like if Philly somehow finds a way to land Jesse Bates, I'll pivot here and we'll go somewhere else. But it feels like they're missing that over-the-top safety for the future. Marcus Epps, I know a couple years ago was a little bit better than this past season, but you still have Epps in the building, so maybe they keep him around. But if they do, Jamie Robinson can also play that strong safety spot, and then maybe you're moving Chauncey Gardner-Johnson in the nickel, if you even bring back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, because he is a free agent this year, so he might be priced out of your budget anyway. So Jamie Robinson, let's just add a safety in the mix where I think Philadelphia could use an upgrade there. Then we get to Chicago Bears, and as promised, we're going to go wide receiver here. I'm going to go with Parker Washington. Before I make the pick and we get the final screen, I'll go ahead and do it. Let's go with Parker Washington here. You play him in the nickel, in my opinion, and the slot, in my opinion, and that gives you Mooney, Claypool on the outside, One guy who can win with speed and size, another guy who wins with speed and route running, and then Parker Washington there in the slot. A guy who can win with his route running, but also a guy I think could be a really nice contested catch player, because you see some moments in tape where it's like, it's Jahan Dotson-esque. I don't want to helmet scout here, but it's, these two guys who may not have the size and frame that you would think can go up and get it, but they kind of do. And it's kind of like, okay, well, hey, if that's in your arsenal and you can win that way, then great, let's take it into consideration. But really the focus is here is, hey, let's go get another legitimate starting wide receiver option for Justin Fields. We went tackle earlier on in the second round. Now we got a wide receiver. We're trying to give Justin Fields a fair shake and see if he is our franchise quarterback of the future. But that is going to do it for round 2 of my updated 2023 NFL mock draft. Apologies, I felt like I couldn't talk today or yesterday, so really do apologize for that. I like to be well-spoken. Obviously, I'm a broadcaster. That's what I do in my day job, so I should be. But nonetheless, let me know what you think about this mock draft after I've scrolled through it now. Who's your favorite team? And if this were the draft haul, what would you grade it? And feel free to be critical, but just let me know why. Like, tell me why you don't think it's the way that team would go, or why you don't like the haul I gave your favorite squad. Or if you loved it, let me hear why. I'd love to hear why you like those fits and what you think they might do this offseason. As long as you're not an asshole, I'll respond to just about every comment, and I'll have a good football conversation with you down below. But also, I take those comments into future consideration for other mocks. So let me hear your opinion down below in the comments section. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Like if you did enjoy today's video. But for today's video, that's going to do it for me. My name's Teach, and I'm signing off.